The PlayStation 4's life cycle is quickly coming to an end, and it's been one hell of a console. So many fantastic games have been released, from God of War to Bloodborne and Final Fantasy VII Remake. And in classic Sony tradition, they've saved their big guns for last, with Naughty Dog's The Last of Us 2. The original game was commended as one of, if not the best game on the PlayStation 3, and many fans, myself included, hold it near and dear to their heart. Naughty Dog has some extremely high expectations to meet in order to be a worthy sequel of the first. And to make matters even worse, key plot points were leaked months ago, and a lot of fans are disappointed, to say the least.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
But with the leaks and the hate aside, I went into this game with an open mind to see if it's a worthy sequel or if the original is a grave that Naughty Dog should not have soiled.
Am I really gonna defile this grave for money?
But with that, let's go ahead and get started.
And I'm gonna kill every last one of them.
So The Last of Us 2 takes place 4 years directly after the original game. We find Joel and Ellie living a fairly normal life given the circumstances, where they're part of a thriving community. Ellie and Joel have matured significantly since the last game, but there's clearly some tension between the two that we later learn is a direct result of the decisions that Joel made at the end of the first game. Not only do those actions affect their relationship, but we come to find out very soon have had a significant impact on other people throughout the world as well. And this is one of the things that I really love about the game. It's a realistic progression of the way the first game ended. In the end, we see Joel really ending up as a villain. Even though we understand and empathize with the decision that he made in order to save Ellie's life, what he did was objectively wrong. And this game doesn't ignore that, but digs into it and shows how it's affected others as well. In this game, we not only play as Ellie for a good portion of the game, but we also play as a new character named Abby, who is a part of a different community called the Wolves. So this leads me into my first point that I want to talk about, and that is the characters. While a lot of people were frustrated to find out that you have to play as Abby, myself included, I found her to be a fantastic addition to the Last of Us world. I was initially put off by having to play as her, and found her to be a bit annoying at first. But as I spent more time with her, she quickly became a character that I cared deeply about, and one that had really great character development. Not only Abby, but a majority of the new characters introduced to the story are great additions. This is one of the areas where I think Naughty Dog as a company really shines. Their games have so many memorable and lovable characters. And while I don't think that the new characters in this game are their best, I still think they add a lot to the story. I found myself laughing and caring for the new characters and genuinely enjoyed spending time with them throughout my time with the game. So next up is the gameplay. And this is personally where I think the game is the weakest. All of Naughty Dog's games have a very similar combat style and system, and I've never been a huge fan of them, so this gripe might be fairly biased. But to start, shooting in The Last of Us to me just doesn't feel good. I don't know if it's just because I suck with the guns, but some were so difficult to land shots with, especially in more intense moments, that even towards the end, I found myself trying to push through the fighting sequences as quickly as possible because of how bored or frustrated I was getting with some of them. On the other side though, enemy AI is actually pretty great. They can be super punishing and are fairly smart as well. Killing a full mob without being noticed is not an easy task at all. Infected are even more annoying to fight, especially the new silent ones that you're not able to see with your X-ray vision or your hearing mode. There's even one boss, or one final boss that you fight at the end, and this fight was so frustrating for me, and I could not wait for it to be over. But stealth is definitely where the combat shines the most in my opinion, and that's where I would say I had the most fun. But towards the end of the story, as the pacing began to increase significantly, I found fighting sections to be more and more annoying. Even though I had begun to master and become comfortable with the fighting system, the fights never felt rewarding or satisfying to me. And I felt like some of the fighting sequences were there just to pad the time that it took to get from one plot point to another. So while combat isn't the most fun, the killing animations are brutal and very satisfying, which did add a lot to the fighting experience. So going off of that, for the graphics, I really feel like not much needs to be said that hasn't already been said. There's a good chance that this game is the best looking game I've ever played. Environments and backgrounds look so detailed and realistic, and Naughty Dog has really outdone themselves here. Character animations are so lifelike, and I really don't know how much more they can improve upon how this game looks. Sometimes character models in the middle of combat look a little goofy, but for the most part, the character models, characters, and environments look fantastic. But the detail and realism in the characters and their faces as they're fighting and as Ellie is killing some of them really adds another level of intensity and even emotion throughout the game. Seeing the struggle and emotion on characters' faces really drives home the emotion that the story is going for in a lot of the quieter and more impactful moments. The graphics in this game are easily a 10 out of 10. And from where we're at right now in gaming, to me, there's not a better looking game out there, in my opinion. So music, sound design, and voice acting are all top tier as well. The guns and weapons sound fantastic, very satisfying. The infected sounds scary as hell, and the music, like the first game, is beautiful. Really, everything is here for an immersive cinematic experience that Naughty Dog really nails in their games. But with every Naughty Dog game comes a great story, and that's definitely where the most controversy lies for The Last of Us 2. So, what are my thoughts on this game's story? Without going into spoilers, the story to me is a bit of a mixed bag. But for the most part, I thought it was really great. I have no issues at all with the big plot points that were spoiled and leaked, and to me, they're a logical progression from the last game to this one, and one that makes sense in light of how things ended. I have no issues at all with the story being focused mainly on revenge, and I enjoyed getting to see the story unfold from multiple characters' perspectives. The emotional moments in this game really landed and stuck for me. I found myself feeling similar emotions to the characters as the story progressed. I was hurting with Ellie and Abby as they were hurting, and my anger and blood was boiling as they became angry and were frustrated. People have been boiling down the plot to revenge is bad, and I think if you were to do that, you'd be doing the game a great disservice. It's clear throughout the game that that is a message that Naughty Dog is trying to portray to the player, but they do it in a really beautiful way. Great stories don't tell you how you're supposed to feel or what you're supposed to think. They impact your feelings and thoughts through the characters' experiences, and Naughty Dog really nailed that here. Characters that I hated at the start and even the middle of the game, I found myself rooting and cheering for towards the end. And I found my feelings and thoughts at the beginning of the story changing significantly at the end as well. We see how revenge is a never-ending cycle, and for some characters, they're able to come to that realization naturally and overcome it, while others never do it and are consumed by their hate. But my real issue with the story narrows down to pacing. The game's first 2 hours start off on an extremely intense moment, and while your emotions are high, the game completely has the player's attention. But the pacing slows down to a near complete halt right after that. And when you go from this extremely intense moment, you go to playing as Ellie and trying to get into buildings and walking around barren environments. And this happened multiple times throughout the game. There are times when the game follows up an extremely intense moment with a calm and emotional moment in order to give the player a breather. And sometimes these moments work really well, and they give a lot of impactful backstory to the player. But other times I found myself a bit annoyed and trying to push through those in order to get to the next plot point. A lot of the story involves traveling from point A to point B, where you're going to encounter enemies in between those 2 points. And while this is fine for some of the game, it happened way too often and really hurt the pacing of the game in my eyes. There's a point where the story meets for both Ellie and Abby, and tensions are very high. And I was sure this was going to be the end of the game or near end of the game. But after this moment and this great payoff, the game slowed down yet again, and I later came to find that there was more than 8 hours of game left for me to play. That's not to say that I didn't enjoy those 8 hours, because the end of the game was some of my favorite moments, but I felt like this game could have benefited greatly from being 5 to 8 hours shorter and cutting out some plot points and some of the fluff of combat. So in conclusion, overall, what are my thoughts on this game? This is without a doubt Naughty Dog's most ambitious story yet, and they've taken a big risk with it. But to me, it's a risk that without a doubt pays off. The Last of Us 2 is one of my favorite games on the PlayStation 4, and a story that I won't be forgetting anytime soon. While there are definitely some issues in this game, and it's far from perfect, what Naughty Dog does right here, they really nailed. People are without a doubt going to be upset with the story decisions, and while I initially was upset as well, after experiencing the story as a whole, I found it to be deeply moving and impactful. And to those who are refusing to play this game because of the leaks, I think you're doing yourself a great disservice and are missing out on one of the best games of this console generation. And just like Sony ended the PlayStation 3's life cycle with a bang, they do the exact same thing for the PlayStation 4, with one of, if not my favorite games of the year, in The Last of Us 2. So there you go, guys. Those are my thoughts on The Last of Us 2. For those of you who have played it, I'm very interested to hear what are your opinions and thoughts on the game, what are your opinions and thoughts on the story, and do they align with mine or vary a lot. But that's going to do it for this video, guys. I really appreciate you guys coming to check out this review, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.